It is the ache of a soul that's been starving for meaning. In our modern world, flooded with dating apps, short-term thrills, seductive images, and dopamine on demand, we have been trained to chase desire, to seek intensity, to find ourselves in another person's gaze. But what if the deeper truth is this? Beneath the craving for skin is a craving for self. Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, believed that behind many of our compulsions lies a spiritual void. What we call lust may in fact be a substitute, a temporary bandage we place over an unexamined inner emptiness. We do not simply want bodies. We want to feel whole, to be mirrored, to be seen, not just by others, but by the part of ourselves we've buried. This is not a new phenomenon. The poets of ancient Persia wrote of forbidden desires that masked existential longing. Christian mystics wrote of carnal temptations that, when peeled back, revealed the search for divine union. Even in Greek mythology, the tales of seduction and obsession, from Helen of Troy to Narcissus, were always layered with a deeper message. That desire is often a disguise for despair. And yet, here we are, in the 21st century, still confusing the ache for love with the ache for escape. You may begin to see certain moments in your life, not as mistakes, but as signals, as whispers from the unconscious calling you back home. Because the real question is not, why do I desire this person? The real question is, what part of me is missing that I hope they will fill? To understand why we mistake lust for something deeper, we need to rewind, not just to Jung's early 20th century clinic in Zurich, but to the deserts of ancient Arabia, the temples of Greece, the palaces of Rome, and the lonely cells of medieval monks. In ancient cultures, lust was never treated as mere animal instinct. It was revered, feared, ritualized, till the Greeks, Eros, the god of desire, was not just about sex. He was a chaotic force that could drive people mad, tear apart kingdoms, or awaken dormant parts of the soul. To be touched by Eros was to be set on fire, but not always in joy. Sometimes it meant self-destruction. Plato, in his Symposium, described a hierarchy of love. At the lowest rung was lust, physical desire. But as love matured, it could evolve toward what he called divine love, a yearning for beauty itself, for truth, for the soul of things. He believed that those who stayed stuck in the flesh never truly ascended to wisdom. Lust, then, was a doorway, but many mistook the doorframe for the destination. In the East, similar patterns emerged. In ancient Indian texts, sensual pleasure was not forbidden. One of the 4 goals of life was celebrated, but only when held in balance. If became obsession, if desire overran duty or spiritual liberation, the self would fragment. You would no longer be whole, but scattered, constantly seeking fulfillment outside yourself. It's like a thirsty man sipping from salt water. The Sufis, Islamic mystics, were even more poetic about it. They spoke of ish, or divine longing, a love so intense it could be mistaken for erotic passion. But Sufi poets like Rumi and Hafiz constantly reminded us, the beloved you seek in others is a mirror, a fragment of the divine you've forgotten lives within. Lust, to them, was a metaphor, a signpost toward the true union, not the destination itself. Then came a darker turn. In the Christian medieval era, particularly in the West, desire was reframed, not as sacred, but as sinful. Lust was demonized. Monasteries were filled with men and women who tried to starve the body to purify the soul. But often, this only deepened the split. Jung later observed that what is repressed does not disappear. It festers in the unconscious, growing stronger in shadow. The church taught that sexual thoughts were distractions from God, and yet some of the most famous Christian mystics, Saint Teresa of Avila, for instance, described ecstatic visions of divine union using unmistakably sensual language. Her most famous vision describes an angel piercing her with a golden spear, filling her with such sweetness that she moaned aloud. Were these spiritual experiences erotic hallucinations, or both? This confusion between lust and longing, between flesh and soul, was not new, but it became increasingly repressed, and thus increasingly misunderstood. The deeper the denial of the body, the more distorted the craving became. By the Enlightenment, rationalism had begun to replace religion as the dominant lens of Western thought. And yet, the question of desire still lingered. What do we really want when we want someone? Freud, Jung's one-time mentor and eventual rival, believed that sexuality was at the core of human motivation. He saw desire not just as pleasure-seeking, but as a way to navigate trauma, memory, power, and identity. To Freud, our childhood wounds shaped who and what we craved. But Jung disagreed. He believed Freud's view was too narrow, too focused on the physical and the pathological. Jung saw something more archetypal at play. Lust, in his view, was often symbolic. It represented a call from the unconscious, a yearning for integration, a desire to reclaim parts of the self we had disowned. When a man lusts after a wild, untamable woman, is he truly desiring her? Or is he projecting his lost inner chaos, the anima, the feminine soul he has exiled from his waking life? When a woman obsesses over a mysterious, aloof man, is it truly about him? Or about her own denied power, her own shadow yearning to be seen? Jung taught us that we often fall in love, or into lust, with parts of ourselves that we haven't made peace with. And so lust becomes a symbol, a symptom, not just of attraction, talents. Let's fast forward to today. We live in a world saturated with simulated intimacy, infinite scrolls of curated bodies, sexuality stripped from sacredness, pleasure removed from depth. Capitalism sells us desire, but empties it of meaning. The result? Society chasing connection through consumption. You can order a date like you order a burger. Swipe, crave, consume, discard. But what happens when the craving never stops? The French sociologist Jean Baudrillard once wrote that in the age of simulation, signs replace reality. We chase the idea of intimacy, the image of desire, not the thing itself. Cups, a performance, a habit, a drug. But beneath the polished skin, the gem-sculpted bodies, the moaned affirmations, is a gnawing void. As Jung might say, our collective unconscious is crying out. We are more connected than ever, and lonelier than ever, more sexually expressive than ever, and more emotionally lost than ever. The emptiness we feel, it is not because we lack people. It is because we've lost our wholeness. We have mistaken touch for presence, orgasm for intimacy, and lust for love. But here's the twist. Lust is not the villain. Lust, when pure, is a beautiful thing, a pulse of life, a sacred fire. But when it becomes a substitute, when we use it to escape the silence within, it mutates. That is the confusion Jung warns us about. It's because if we do not understand the true source of our hunger, we will spend a lifetime feeding the wrong appetite. Carl Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." This is where our misunderstanding of lust begins, because very often what we call desire is not desire at all, but displacement, not connection, but projection. And we place our missing pieces onto another person, believing that if we just get close enough, they just say the right thing or hold us the right way, we will finally feel whole again. But no one can give you the self you abandoned. Jung's concept of projection is foundational to this discussion. It's a psychological defense mechanism, yes, but also a spiritual one. When we are unaware of our inner wounds, needs, or unintegrated traits, we project them onto others. We don't just fall in love with a person. We fall in love with the version of ourselves we see in them. Imagine a man who craves a mysterious, emotionally unavailable woman. He says it's her beauty, her allure. But beneath that, perhaps he is drawn to her silence, her self-containment, her seeming invulnerability, traits he himself never developed because he was taught to be open, accommodating, exposed. So what is he chasing? Not her, but a mirror. It's a lost self. Desire, in Jungian terms, becomes symbolic. The body you crave is a carrier for something psychological you haven't faced. You are not addicted to the person. You are addicted to the feeling of being filled. This is why obsessive love feels spiritual. It's not about the other. It's about you, trying to return home to yourself through someone else. Jung also introduced the idea of the shadow, the unconscious parts of ourselves that we reject, repress, or ignore. Think of all the emotions you were told to hide: anger, wildness, neediness, sensuality, power. What happens to those parts? They do not die. They go underground and wait. And then, one day, someone walks into your life who embodies everything you've buried. They are confident, magnetic, unpredictable. You tell yourself you're attracted to them. But Jung would say, you are not attracted. You are haunted. You are looking into the face of your own shadow and mistaking it for a soulmate. This is the secret reason why some lust feels overwhelming, 'cause it isn't about sex. It's about recovering a part of the soul you left behind. Lust, then, is not just longing. It is the language of the abandoned self. Jung went even deeper with his theory of inner archetypes, specifically the anima and animus. He believed that every man holds within him a feminine energy, the anima, and every woman holds a masculine energy, the animus. These inner figures shape how we relate to the opposite sex, but also how we relate to our inner wholeness. The problem: most of us do not know these inner parts. We exile them. And when we don't meet the anima or animus within, we seek it outside, in romantic obsession. When a man becomes fixated on a woman who is creative, wild, emotionally deep, he may be chasing his anima, the feminine part of his soul that he never allowed himself to access. When a woman becomes obsessed with a man who is strong, distant, powerful, she may be seeking her animus, the assertive energy she never claimed. In both cases, lust becomes a mirror, a fever dream of integration. But here is the danger. If we remain unconscious of this process, we become trapped. We give our power away. We fall not in love, but in projection. And when the illusion shatters, we feel betrayed. Not because the other person changed, but because they never actually were who we needed them to be. They were only ever a stand-in for a missing part of ourselves. Fast forward to today, and this psychological confusion has only intensified. In the age of hyperstimulation, we are taught to feed desire constantly, but never to understand it. We scroll through endless faces and bodies. We are sold the fantasy that the right person will complete us. Movies, music, and social media paint lust as love and obsession as romance. And underneath it all, a mass emotional famine. Loneliness is at record highs. Anxiety, disconnection, and a quiet, chronic sense of not enoughness plague entire generations. And yet, the solution most often offered is to get out there, to hook up, to find someone new. What if we are trying to heal our trauma by dating it? What if we are trying to escape the emptiness by feeding it pleasure? Neuroscience shows us that dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, spikes not when we receive pleasure, but when we anticipate it. This means lust, especially unfulfilled lust, becomes addictive. The chase, the fantasy, the promise of being made whole, even if it never arrives. So we swipe again. We fantasize again, and the emptiness deepens. This is not just psychological. It's spiritual. It's a crisis of self-abandonment. Jung believed that healing begins with integration. Wholeness is not found in another's arms. It is found when you stop dividing yourself. The shadow must be met. The anima and animus must be embraced. The projections must be withdrawn, not to isolate you, but to return your soul to your own hands. This does not mean love or desire are wrong. On the contrary, Jung valued relationships deeply. But he saw them not as places to lose yourself, but to find yourself. A conscious relationship, he said, is two people who have met their own shadows, who have walked through their own fires, who desire one another, not to be completed, but to be mirrored. Lust, then, is not the problem. The problem is when lust becomes a mask, when it becomes a shield that hides the ache of your own absence. And the solution, it begins not with another person, but with the question, what am I truly seeking, and why do I believe it exists outside of me? We live in a time where desire is glorified, and still, so many of us lie awake at night feeling hollow. Because when lust becomes a mask for emptiness, it does not fulfill us. It drains us. It builds a house of mirrors, and every reflection is someone else. We chase body after body, moment after moment, intensity after intensity. But the high never lasts, because the real hunger is not physical. It is existential. When we mistake lust for love, or worse, for healing, we begin to fracture internally. Our sense of self becomes tied to external validation. We start defining our worth based on how desirable we are to others. Every compliment, every swipe right, every returned gaze becomes a temporary fix, a dopamine drip. But what happens when they don't look, when they lose interest? We collapse. Because if the spark from another was our only light, then their absence leaves us in total darkness. This is how we become addicted not to people, but to the feeling of being wanted, because deep down, we have not truly wanted ourselves. Carl Jung warned that when we fail to integrate our shadow, our hidden emotions, unclaimed wounds, secret strengths, we are doomed to seek wholeness in someone else. And that seeking becomes a cycle of dependency, of subtle emotional slavery. We do not fall in love, we fall into roles: savior, victim, temptress, pursuer, and eventually, ghost. One of the cruelest consequences of mistaking emptiness for lust is emotional confusion. You think you're in love, you feel a rush, a burning pull, but something is off. You feel euphoric, then sick, connected, then hollow, seen, then discarded, over and over. This cycle is not just psychological, it is biochemical. The brain, flooded with dopamine during attraction, crashes when the stimulus disappears. You begin to equate emotional highs with meaning, in the absence of drama with boredom. But stable love is not boring. It is unfamiliar to the trauma-bonded mind. Many people confuse intensity with intimacy, but intimacy is calm, gentle, seen. Intensity is often a trauma echo, a reenactment of a childhood dynamic you never healed. Jung believed we are unconsciously drawn to people who activate our unresolved wounds because part of us wants to relive them in hopes of a different ending. But rarely does that happen. Instead, we feel guilty, broken. We ask ourselves, why do I keep choosing the wrong people? Why do I lose interest after the chase? Why do I feel so empty after the pleasure fades? And the answer is painful, but freeing. Because you are not looking for love. You are looking for home. And no one else can build it for you. The consequences extend beyond the self. When we enter relationships from a place of hunger rather than wholeness, we unconsciously create suffering for others. We idealize people only to resent them for not healing us. We ghost them when they become real because the fantasy dies. We cling to toxic dynamics because they reflect our wounded blueprint of love. We become emotionally unavailable, even while physically intimate. This is the paradox. In chasing closeness, we actually push people away. because we are not looking to know them. We are looking to feel less alone, and when they fail to deliver salvation, we discard them or obsess over them, not because of who they are, but because of what they represented: a lifeline, a hope, a mirror. How many hearts have broken, not from betrayal, but from miscommunication of need? One person thinks they are being loved. The other is just trying to escape themselves. We call this hookup culture, or situationships, or modern dating. But it is ancient. The Greeks told the story of Narcissus, a man who rejected love and became obsessed with his own reflection. He died staring into a pool of water, unable to touch what he thought he loved. Jung would say, we are all Narcissus until we learn to embrace the part of ourselves we abandoned. Throughout history, we see the same tale in different skins. Helen of Troy, the face that launched 1,000 ships. But behind the beauty was a woman torn by desire and identity, used as a symbol of lust and war. Did she crave love or escape? Antony and Cleopatra, a love so explosive it defied empires. But was it love, or two lonely sovereigns seeking in each other what their thrones could never give? In every age, we find this same haunting rhythm. Desire inflamed by emptiness leads to destruction. Not always physical, sometimes emotional, sometimes spiritual. This is not to say desire is wrong, but when it is unexamined, when it is used to fill a soul wound, it leaves a trail of ashes. Perhaps the greatest tragedy is not broken hearts, but dulled spirits. Because when you feed the soul with what only satisfies the body, the soul begins to starve. We become desensitized, spiritually numb. We stop believing in deep love, in sacred connection, in inner peace. We tell ourselves it's all a game, that everyone leaves, that nobody feels anymore. But beneath that cynicism is grief, and beneath the grief is yearning. Yearning to feel deeply, to be held, not by another, but by truth. This is what Jung meant when he said most neuroses stem from the unlived life. When you do not live your truth, your needs, your dreams, your inner knowing, you will seek distractions. Lust becomes one of them, a loud one, a socially accepted one, but a distraction nonetheless. And the cost is great, because while you chase bodies, your soul waits. Carl Jung once said, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. This is where healing begins, not with another person's touch, but with your own inner gaze. Not with the next high, but with the stillness you've been avoiding. Because if what you thought was lust is actually emptiness, then the solution is not more pleasure. It is presence. The hunger must be met, not escaped. And that requires practices that are honest, grounding, and soul restoring. Let us now walk through those practices, not as rigid rules, but as gentle invitations. The first step is awareness, learning to pause the pattern. The next time you feel a strong wave of desire, a craving for someone's attention, touch, or presence, stop and ask, what am I really feeling right now? Is it lust, or is it loneliness? Is it attraction or anxiety? Is it genuine interest, or the fear of being unseen? This is not about judgment. It's about curiosity. Carl Jung believed that when we make the unconscious conscious, we free ourselves. You cannot heal what you do not see. And very often, we chase people because we are running from silence. Try sitting with the feeling before acting on it. Place a hand on your heart. Close your eyes. Breathe into the discomfort. Ask yourself, what would I want from this person if physical intimacy were off the table? Sometimes, you'll find you just wanted comfort, or admiration, or to feel alive. That's the truth beneath the trigger. Jung believed in something called active imagination, a process where you give voice to the different parts of yourself, the craving, the inner child. Try this. When you feel drawn to someone in a way that feels consuming, write a dialogue in your journal. Let desire speak, then let you speak back. For example, desire. I want them to text back. I need to feel desired. You. What are you really afraid of right now? Desire? That I'm forgettable? That no one sees me? You? I see you. K. You're not broken. This kind of journaling reveals what is hidden beneath the surface and slowly teaches the nervous system that you do not need someone else to validate your existence. You can hold your own ache. You can become your own mirror. Jung emphasized that much of what we fall for in others are disowned parts of ourselves. So, instead of obsessing over the person, turn your gaze inward. Ask, what does this person represent to me? What part of myself do they awaken or reflect that I've neglected? If you're drawn to someone's mystery, are you neglecting your own need for solitude and inner life? If you're intoxicated by their confidence, are you suppressing your own power? The goal is not to reject your attraction, but to integrate the qualities you admire. Instead of believing someone else holds the missing piece, you begin to develop it within yourself. This is the heart of Jung's concept of individuation, becoming whole by reclaiming your fragmented self. Much of what we call lust is stored not just in the mind, but in the body. Restlessness, tightness, butterflies, impulses. Your nervous system reacts faster than your thoughts. To slow the cycle of compulsion, you must return to the body. Here are a few embodied practices that support healing. Breath work. When you feel overwhelmed with craving, take 10 deep belly breaths. K. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. This signals safety to your nervous system. Cold showers. They reset your dopamine system, especially after overstimulation from screens, porn, or fantasy. Meditation. Sit with yourself for 10 minutes daily. Notice what arises. Don't escape it. Witness it. Over time, this builds tolerance for stillness. Jung did not separate psychology from spirituality. He believed transformation required ritual, a deliberate practice of facing yourself. The body is the temple where the unconscious often speaks first. Across history, mystics and sages understood that human longing was never just physical, it was spiritual. The Sufi poet Rumi wrote, "Don't seek water, become thirsty." This meant, sit with your longing. Let it teach you. Let it purify you. If you're spiritually inclined, try Lectio Divina. Read spiritual or mystical texts slowly, allowing a single line to resonate. Reflect, journal, pray. Walking meditations. Take quiet walks without music or distraction. Let the silence guide you back to your center. Fasting. Try fasting from stimulation, social media, dating apps, romantic content for a few days. Watch what surfaces. Meet the ache that was always underneath. These are not punishments. They are pathways. They teach you that peace comes not from filling the void, but from understanding it. Many of our romantic cravings stem from childhood wounds, places where we were not emotionally held, mirrored, or understood. Jung often said, the greatest burden a child carries is the unlived life of their parents. That unhealed lineage seeps into our adult relationships. But you can begin to reparent yourself. When you feel a wave of craving, imagine the child version of yourself, scared, needy, yearning. Now, speak to them. I know you're scared. I know you feel unloved right now. But I'm here. I'm not leaving. It sounds simple, but this practice can rewire years of abandonment, because what you're truly craving isn't another lover. It's the moment someone finally stayed. And you can be that someone. Lust becomes a trap when the rest of your life feels empty. If your career, friendships, creativity, and spiritual practices are barren, you will turn intimacy into a lifeline. Begin reclaiming your life. Cultivate sacred friendships, people who reflect truth, not just escape. Start a creative ritual. Write, draw, build, dance. Find purpose beyond romance. Volunteer, build something, serve a cause. Return to soulful solitude, not isolation, but depth. Jung called this the journey of individuation, becoming your full self, not half of a broken whole. Because once you fill your life with meaning, you stop using people as medicine. And that, paradoxically, is when love becomes real, not desperate, not consuming, but generous. Whole meeting, whole. So, what if all this time, it was not lust that gripped you? What if that burning hunger, the flutter in your stomach, the ache that pulled you toward someone like a tide, was not a sign of passion, but a signal, a flare sent from your unconscious, crying out, "Come back to yourself." Carl Jung believed that most suffering comes not from evil or weakness, but from disconnection, from losing touch with the deeper self, the soul, the archetypes and energies within us that we have disowned. And when that happens, when the inner world collapses, we look outward for rescue. That is the hidden tragedy of our age. We confuse lust for love, pleasure for peace, intensity for intimacy. And it is not our fault. We were taught this, conditioned by movies, music, media, and trauma. Sold the myth that someone else will complete us, and if we're not chasing, craving, burning, it must not be real. But Jung would say the opposite. He would tell you that the real journey is not outward, but inward, into the caves of the psyche, into the forgotten parts of your soul, into the dreams that still whisper while you sleep. 'Cause the thing you are chasing in others, you already are. The confidence you admire is buried in you. The depth you crave is your own unspoken wisdom. The love you seek is a love you have not yet given yourself. Healing does not come by killing desire. It comes by understanding it, transmuting it, alchemizing it into something deeper. Lust is not the enemy. It is the beginning. It is the voice of your unmet needs, your suppressed power, your lonely child within, saying, "Please see me, please choose me, please come home." So come home. Come home to your breath. Come home to your truth. Come home to the mirror, not the mask. Build a life where you are not constantly seeking escape, but finding expression. Where relationships are not crutches, but co-creations. Where solitude is not punishment, but sanctuary. Where your craving does not consume you, but guides you. This is what Jung meant by individuation, not perfection, but integration. The day you stop chasing someone to save you is the day your real life begins. Throughout history, the great myths and sacred texts pointed to the same truth. The Sufis wrote that the beloved you seek is already within. The Bhagavad Gita taught that desire, unchecked, leads to delusion, and only through self-mastery can we find peace. The Gospel of Thomas whispers, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you." And Jung echoed them all, in his language of archetypes and shadows and dreams. He saw the human soul not as something broken, but something buried, covered by years of pretending, performing, and projecting. But it is still there. And when you stop filling the void with stimulation, when you stop confusing intensity with truth, when you meet your own hunger with gentleness instead of judgment, something happens. The lust becomes longing. The longing becomes listening. And the listening becomes love. Real love. Not the burning kind that fades by morning, but the quiet kind. The kind that stays. The kind that holds. Not because someone else made you feel worthy, but because you finally remembered you already were. If something in this video spoke to you, if you felt seen, stirred, or even slightly cracked open, then this space was made for you. Because here, we do not chase trends, we chase truth. We peel back the surface of things, of lust, love, loneliness, and longing, not to judge, but to understand, not to shame the struggle, but to illuminate it. And if you are someone who feels deeply, someone who's been told they're too much, or too quiet, or too complicated, you're not alone. You're exactly who this space is for. On this channel, we explore what it means to live with purpose, to reclaim your personal power, and to walk through life with eyes wide open. Emotionally, spiritually, historically, we draw from the wisdom of Carl Jung, ancient philosophy, modern psychology, and raw human experience. We talk about the things that matter but rarely get said out loud. Desire, emptiness, identity, purpose, and what it really means to heal. So if you're tired of the noise, of shallow answers to deep questions, then join us. Subscribe, not because you should, but because something in your soul is ready for more depth, more clarity, more inner alignment. This is not just a channel. It is a journey into the self, through time, and toward something real. And you are invited. Because the world doesn't need more perfection. It needs more people willing to face their shadows, to live consciously, to love with their whole hearts. And maybe that starts here. So subscribe, stay close, and let's keep going together.